Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be going through what to do to deal with this heat.
Here, Mr. Bilbo, where are you off to? I'm going on an adventure.
Okay, so unless you've been living under some sort of rock or have managed to luckily book yourself a flight to Antarctica or the North Pole for some reason, you'll notice that the UK is going through some sort of heat wave right now. So today I'm just going to go out, collect some bramble from a stick insect and have a chat about what I do to protect my animals against the heat. Okay, first tip, overnight have your windows open and all the doors open around the house. Let the air flow through the house and let that hot air back out, because obviously temperatures overnight will drop. They're not going to drop too much, but they will drop. So overnight, windows open if you can. I know obviously people want to protect against break-ins and things like that, but if you can have your windows open overnight, huge benefit, letting the hot air back out of the house overnight and letting the air flow through. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, this might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but what I tend to do is have the windows shut during the day and the curtains drawn. What that does is it stops a lot of the heat coming in through the glass, and if you've got dark curtains, blackout blinds, whatever you've got, it'll absorb an awful lot of the heat as well. So it keeps the hot air out and keeps the cooler air in your house. Okay, that's tip number two. Tip number three, when we're talking about the windows and curtains being shut, what I would also do is any room that doesn't have animals in it, any room that you're not using, just shut the door on them. Don't worry about how hot they get. You want to try and cool down the smaller areas if you can. Depending on which way the house is orientated as well, depends on which rooms will get the heat during the morning and afternoon. Obviously the sun's hotter in the afternoon. Our spider room unfortunately is at the front of the house, because in the winter we need that extra heat if we can. In the summer it's a nightmare trying to keep cool. So all we do is we shut the doors on the other bedrooms and have the landing and the spider room door open so that we can end up having the flowing through there. And that's tip number three, I think. We have bramble. We've got bramble. Right, where are we? Tip number four. Okay, so tip number four from me will be, if you have fans or air conditioning units, obviously you want to put them in the room that you're trying to keep cooler. Remember that fans draw air from behind and push it forwards. So you could always freeze a bottle of water, put it behind the fan, and it will draw the cold air through. Yeah, behind the fan, and that will pull the air through. Okay, so whilst I was editing this video, I sort of had a thought that this might not be the correct information, because I never put the bottle behind, and I don't know why. I think the heat was getting to my brain a little bit. I do normally put the bottle of water in front, so I did a quick research on Google, our friend. I know it's not always accurate for information, but I did go onto quite a few sites and have a look, and the best way to do it, which is actually the way we do it with the bottle in front, I don't know why I said behind, but whilst it is true that fans draw the air from behind and you could effectively put the bottle behind, it is actually better to place either an ice bucket or ice bottle in front of a fan, or a damp towel. You could have a damp towel dripped in a tray as long as it's not nowhere near the fan at all, because what will happen is it's to do with the evaporation of the water, cooling down the air and then basically pushing the air forwards. So in front, not behind. Let's get back to the video. If you have access to an air conditioning unit, like if you're in America and you have them fitted in your house, then I'm very jealous. If you have a portable air conditioning unit like me, then it's sitting at the moment in the landing, pointing down there, heating that room and the spider room down. So hopefully that's going to be doing the job while I'm out. That's tip number 4. Okay, next tip, number 5 I think. We are talking about water. Obviously everything's dry at the moment. Even the dry species will need water to survive. All animals do. So what you probably want to do is make sure all your water bowls are filled up and ensure that they've got access to water at least. You want to make sure that you sprinkle some either water, a few droplets onto the webbing, or you want to make sure the water bowl's full up. Either way, ensure they've got access to water. Things don't do too well without water. You don't want to cook them with humidity, but you do need access to that lovely H2O. What was that? Anyway, that's tip number 5. Okay, next tip. Look at this field. Awesome. I'll tell you, I do feel privileged to live in an area that is so green. Well, yellow. But you know what I mean. It's not all built up too much yet. And it's all 5 minutes from a house, which is lovely. Anyway, next tip. So, if you find that the room temperatures are too warm for your inverts, move them downstairs, move them into the coolest room in the house. We've got a dining room that literally doesn't get much sun at all. We've got a conservatory on the back, and it's away from the walls where the sun can get in. So what we tend to do is any of the more fragile spiders and insects, we move them into the dining room. If it gets too hot in that room, they'll be alright in there. The temperatures stay about 21, 22 at the moment, whereas the spider room's about 27. So anything that doesn't deal well with anything like 27, 28 degrees, move them downstairs if you can. If you've got access to, then I would suggest that. So we're on our way home, and I think the final tip for me is if you have any other animals, like things like crested geckos maybe, or anything that doesn't do well with superheat, you don't want anything to get caught on these things. So I wouldn't suggest it for maybe spiders if they can get their hooks through the mesh at the top. But what you can do with some animals is wrap like a frozen ice box in a kitchen towel and place it on the top of the enclosure. What it will do is it will draw the hot air up into that and effectively cool down the entire environment, because the cool air will drop then down the sides as the hot air rises underneath to the air pack. Ice pack. Anyway, the heat is definitely getting to my brain. So, what other things have I got to update you on? Well, talking about the animals and temperature changes, what we've had going on is a lot of molts, because the hot weather brings on a lot of molts, and therefore my annual brachy molting session happened over the last couple of weeks, which is quite cool. You can sort of guarantee as soon as this hot weather hits, all my brachypelmas do molt and go through their annual molting process. They don't tend to molt more than that. Even the smaller slings now, they're getting to that size where they're small juvies maybe, so they're on almost like a 12-month cycle. I am waiting on my Smithy and my Classy, who have been over 12 months, and I'll try and get some footage of those, show you the Smithy size. It's very small. The Classy is looking very fat, but hasn't eaten in 160 something days now. It's been a long time. But we've had a beautiful Bomai, or Bohemi, that's molted out. It's a male, but the colours on it are unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And yes, I did just trip up then. So the brackies are molted. We've had the Reduncus female that I've got from Chris at the moment seems to have sealed herself off in her cork bark. So either she's having a phantom sac, she's going to molt, or I missed the insertion when they paired. So let's just hope it's the last one. There's not much else to report really. That is about it. So before I hit the noisy road, which is just ahead of me there, I will say, if you've got this far, then I do appreciate you. thank you so much for watching and sticking with me on a weird video, walking around in the heat. I am absolutely dripping, it's awful. And I've got to wear this hat because my head is far too bald for this sort of weather. So if you did enjoy today's video anyway, give it a thumbs up. If you've got a comment, something, a tip that you do to sort of like help out people who struggle with the heat, chuck it in the comments below, please do. If it's something I haven't mentioned, maybe it's something I don't even know about, idea that I've not thought of, maybe you can help me out. Just, yeah, try and keep your animals safe, guys, and we'll catch up with you on the live later tonight, or we'll see you next week. Cheers, guys.